Good morning. I pray that your Monday there were spaces and places of joy, of peace, of happiness, places and spaces where you were able to connect with another person, whether it's by phone or by text or Zoom or virtually, or maybe even social distancing 6 feet apart with mask on. Human connection is something that we so desperately need, even though it appears to scare us to death, particularly if you are a trauma survivor. And so that I pray that you were able to stick your big toe into the waters of timidity and to make a connection with someone, a connection on a just checking in. How are you doing? A connection where you were able to not just hear how they were doing, but you were also able to offer a part of yourself. And we will talk about that in future videos to come, the reciprocity in building relationships. We're still continuing our series around change, and we have been just for the last couple of days talking about things that can impact the change that you have determined that you would like to make over the next 6 months. Just a review, I would really invite you to only pick one thing. Sometimes we are so excessive. If you've been traumatized, you tend to operate on extremes. It's either I'm gonna do it all, or I'm not doing anything. And so we always want to focus on balance. And I strongly suggest that we pick one thing. One thing because I want you to be successful. One thing because I want you to be intentional about your focus on that one thing. If your one goal is to change how you eat, okay, let that be your targeted goal. Now, a subset of that may be to move more. But let your targeted goal be around when I'm choosing to eat. Am I eating the things that I have determined would be healthier for me? Or am I continuing to eat those things in either those things or the quantity of things that I know tend to impact me being my best self? If your decision was to change an aspect or the whole relationship with someone, to be intentional about not that you're going to change your relationship with everybody, pick one particular person so that you can practice there. And it may not be everything about the relationship. Your intention may have been, what I'm going to change is not being so reactive. Or maybe it's I'm going to practice setting boundaries. Or maybe it's simply I'm going to practice using my voice. So you get the point. If your determination was to change your relationship with money, you feel like you were either spending excessively, or you're so tight with your money that you making George Washington cry and all those things that you don't even take care of yourself because you don't want to spend your money. Your trust level is such that you can't even trust that if I spend a little something on myself, that my whole world won't fall apart. Then just focus on one thing. Focus on one thing. What I want to talk about today specifically is how we talked about HALT, not becoming too hungry, too angry, too lonely, too tired, as things that can impact our practice in this new way of life, this practice of this thing that we're trying to change, this practice of taking better care of ourselves in whichever area you chose. Today I want to talk about how negative thoughts, not the comments from other people, but our own internalized negative thoughts. Now let's take, for example, if you made the decision, I'm going to eat healthier. And that's a great decision. Most of our illnesses and things, I believe, come from a lot of the choices that we're making into what we put into our bodies. And so, but a negative thought that may impact you, if your decision is I'm going to eat healthier, your negative thought may be, but I don't like this, and I don't like that, and I'm not going to try this, and I have to have it this particular way. I remember I was doing a group with a group of men, and we were talking about making change. And one gentleman was talking about how he had bought an air fryer, and he found that it's really been helpful for him to change how he prepares food and the quantities of the food. It's been really helpful in his ultimate goal, which was to reduce the number of medications he has and to become a little bit more physical. And there were people in the group who were intently listening, but there were people in the group who could not, particularly one gentleman who kept making jokes about it. And then one of the things that he said, and this is his own internalized thinking, his thinking was, oh, if I only have one piece of chicken, that's just a snack. That doesn't even fill my back tooth. Or, no, I can't. Anyway, if chicken's not fried, deep fried, it doesn't taste good. These are some of the messages that we internally tell ourselves. Sometimes the way we sabotage ourselves, someone may say, okay, so why don't you try this particular thing? And just because it's unknown to us, we've never seen it before, we make a determination and tell ourselves internally, you're not going to like that. You're not going to like that. You know, you're just not going to like that. Well, truth be told, I know when I was coming up, the way that I grew up eating a lot of vegetables, they boiled the life out of them. You know, they just took some frozen vegetables out the freezer, put it in a pot, threw a couple of seasonings on it, and then just let it boil and boil and boil. And so for a lot of foods, particularly vegetables, I grew up believing that they should be mushy. I grew up believing that that was the way they were supposed to be. And so when I was introduced to foods that were more stir-fried, that were now more crunchy, that they were not, the life had not been boiled out of them, my first internalized thought was, that can't be right because I'm chewing it. That can't be right. And so what I'm telling my taste buds is you cannot adjust. You cannot even open yourself up to experiencing something new, okay? If your determination was to change your relationships with someone or setting boundaries, your internalized thought may be, I don't know how long I can keep this up. I'm really not that strong. I tend to give up easily. I want to invite you to, when you have those negative self-sabotaging thoughts, to grab them, figuratively grab them before they take on their own weight, before they take on their own life, and challenge those thoughts. Challenge those thoughts. And how do you challenge your thoughts? You ask yourself, what is the evidence? Let's take it with a new food. Or I grew up eating string beans and the life was basically cooked out of them. And then when I was introduced to eating green beans that had a snap or crunch to them, it was like, these aren't even, I can't eat that. These aren't even good for me. I'm not going to even like the taste of them. I don't like having to chew this. What is the evidence that this is not going to be a good thing for me? What is the evidence that supports my negative belief? And a lot of times there is no evidence. The only thing that supports it is our fear of the unknown. If you made a determination, and this is your however many time, that I'm going to eat healthier, but you get in the grocery store and you see your favorite cookies and cakes and potato chips and candy, and yes, I'm listing all those things that challenge me when I say I'm going to eat healthier, and then I try, but then I say, well, I'm gonna buy it, and then I'm gonna discipline myself. And guess what? I really can until those negative thoughts come in and says, you know what? Why are you depriving yourself? You know, you've been doing so good. Why don't you just, it's okay if you overdo it this time, you know. And what I've learned is when those thoughts come, and they definitely come, they still come, I learned to challenge it and say, you know, thoughts, you might be right, but I am convicted. I have made a promise to myself, and I love myself enough to stick with this promise. And guess what? Things work out. I'm able to continue with the decision that I have made, the change, to continue working on the change that I have determined I want to put in place. And I'm going to share with you very, very quickly. My change is as I think I said earlier, since we've been doing social distancing, I've been ordering more things online, and some things I really need, but some things I don't. And so I have things in my house that at the time when I'm ordering, it probably was a good idea, but now I'm like, why did I buy that? So my 6-month thing is, before I make a purchase for anything, to begin to ask myself, why are you making this purchase? What's driving the need behind that? Are you too hungry? Are you too angry? Are you too lonely? Are you too tired? And I then tell myself, don't buy it right now. Give it a couple of days. And if you still want to do it, then let's revisit these questions again. And that's been very helpful for me. And so I invite you, that you may possibly want to use that technique, to ask yourself, why am I prepared to engage in this very thing that I said that I want to change? You know, what's going on right now? Am I too hungry, angry, lonely, or too tired? Or am I bored? What's going on? And if I put it off, meaning if I put off going back to that old behavior, if I put off texting that person who I said I want to gain some space with, if I put off eating the second cupcake because the first one was just that good, if I put it off for a while and come back to it, will the urge still be there? And I invite you to do that on purpose. Love you all, and we'll talk with you tomorrow. Bye-bye.